expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of Game Week 26. A couple of my intros now becoming fairly ingrained. First up then, I've got expected points for the assistant managers. You know, most people, I think, watching my videos will have deployed a chip over the last couple of weeks, and I'd suggest quite a lot of them have used the assistant manager as well. And Game Week 26, I think, it's slim pickings in terms of who the best assistant manager is. And for me, there are four options, I think, that I would genuinely pick, and that's largely reflected in these expected points. I'd say your most likely win, in my opinion, comes from Arteta. 1.5 million, he's got West Ham. I'd say that's probably the most likely win of the game week. Then you've got a couple of fixtures where you could chase the table bonus. So Ruud van Nistelrooy and Leicester have got Brentford at home. Now, I think that's potentially winnable. I don't think, I can't definitely say Leicester are going to beat Brentford, but there's potential there. You got Juric, the Southampton manager, against Brighton. Now, I know Brighton have just beaten Chelsea 2 games on the bounce. But before that, they lost 7-0 to Nottingham Forest, and then they beat Man United. The thing I find with Brighton is they're so inconsistent. They have the ability to beat absolutely everyone in the league, but they also have the ability to just bottle it and lose against anyone. So if there was ever an upset on the cards, I think I would potentially back Southampton to do that. Iraola of Bournemouth, as I say, Brighton then of Bournemouth. He's got Wolves at home. That's a good fixture I'd suggest for them. So he's got a good chance of winning that game as well. And then another one entirely depends really on how Tottenham get on against Man United. I'm recording this ahead of that game. But if Tottenham beat Man United, that should mean there's 5 league positions between Ipswich and Spurs, which could potentially leave Kieran McKenna on the cards as well. It doesn't make this list. But in terms of upsets and likely wins, you're probably covered there by Arteta, Ruud van Nistelrooy, the Southampton manager, Iraola, or potentially Kieran McKenna. All right, starting off then with players, and we've got goalkeepers for Game Week 26 in isolation up first. David Raya, West Ham at home for him. I'd say Arsenal, definitely one of the stronger defences in the league, right? And West Ham, I'm not sure you can actually say they've massively improved under Graham Potter. And with it being at the Emirates, with Arsenal missing all the attackers they have, just kept a clean sheet against Leicester. I'd say the clean sheet there against West Ham is fairly likely. Pickford's got Man United at home. I would personally back Everton to beat Man United in that fixture, particularly considering Ahmad and Mainu are both ruled out now for the season. Pickford could keep a clean sheet, get some saves there. Kepa, Bournemouth, really good defensively. He comes in at 4.5 million. Good fixture against Wolves at home. I think right now, if I were to tell you my favourite cheap goalkeeper, I would probably give it to Kepa. Dubravka with Nottingham Forest at home. Muric, he's not playing for Ipswich anymore, but the Ipswich goalkeeper, Tottenham at home for them. Leno and Alisson are your top goalkeepers for 26. I always say this, but when you're making a transfer in FPL, you're probably going to want to do so thinking more than just one game week in mind. So here we've got a view of top goalkeeper expected points for the next 5 weeks. Raya is number 1. Pickford number 2. Jurgensen of Chelsea 3, who is now confirmed the first choice Chelsea goalkeeper by Maresca. Ipswich goalkeeper in 4th, Kepa in 5th, Jose Sarr, who appears to be starting now for Wolves, starting for Wolves again, he's in 6th, and then Sells of Nottingham Forest in 7th. I must say, as a Sells owner myself, I am slightly tempted to get rid of him. I'm also doubled up on Nottingham Forest defence, so I have Aina as well. And just with, I don't know, say recent performances, they have just beaten Brighton 7-0, haven't they, despite the result against Fulham. Yeah, I am thinking about potentially getting rid of Sells and saving myself some cash, but it's going to be a tough call. Defenders then, and we've got, 3 Arsenal defenders dominating the list. I think that's heavily sort of backed by the fact they're probably quite likely, in terms of the odds, to keep a clean sheet. So we got Gabriel, Saliba and Timber as the order. Personally, just with his slightly additional goal threat, I would say Timber slightly ahead of Saliba for me, and the fact he plays fullback, slightly more attacking. There's not going to be too much between them. With Gabriel, of course, being, in my mind, the outstanding Arsenal defender. Howson and Kirkes are up there as well with Wolves at home. I think Bournemouth have got fairly decent clean sheet odds in that game. Trent's in there, I just think with his sheer attacking threat. And Lewis Hall with Nottingham Forest at home as well. We're seeing a few Newcastle assets certainly defensive ones towards the top of the list here. And I think that's because Nottingham Forest, despite actually scoring goals, partly down to Chris Wood, they're not necessarily, albeit when they beat Brighton 7-0 they were, but in terms of expected goals, they're not necessarily a team in the league that create the most chances. I don't think that's controversial to say. So that's probably why you're seeing Newcastle players towards the top of the list. In terms of the next 5 game weeks, you've got Gabriel and Saliba as the top 2, Guardiola in 3rd place. And I'd actually say, with Man City signing a new defensive midfielder and him having I've forgotten his name. You have to tell me in the comments. Forgive me. He's not an FPL asset, so I don't feel I need to remember his name. But with him in the team now, they've obviously just kept a clean sheet against Newcastle, albeit Newcastle were fairly poor in that one. I do think that was kind of the missing piece in that Man City jigsaw. I never, detracted from them from an attacking perspective. They always seem to be able to score goals, but their midfield was just so easy to play through. And now they've got a new player in that position. I think things will change for them. Guardiola, I say this when I talk about him pretty much every time, but genuinely, every single time I see Guardiola play, he creates a chance or has a chance to score in every game. So I really like him as an option. I'd probably give it a couple more games. Maybe game week 29 is the opportunity to hop on Man City assets when other teams blank. But I do think he could be a good option for the run-in. Timber and Trent up there as well. Nori and Kirkez. And what we've got here is largely premium, more expensive defenders. So what I've got here is a view of the top cheap defenders for the next 5 game weeks. So I've filtered here 5 million and below. Interestingly, we've got Nori as the number 1 cheap defender in the game. Kirkez, Doherty, Chalobah, Munoz, Milenkovic and Semedo. So the list actually, I think it's due to the fact they've got some good fixtures. But the list is essentially dominated by good, cheap Wolves defenders with a bit of Bournemouth chucked in for good measure. Midfielders then, and we've got Salah in number 1. I would say, on the face of it, based on what I've said about Man City and their new player, defensively they look to have improved, but every single time I've seen Liverpool face Man City, Salah has pretty much scored in every game. So he's got a great record against Man City. I wouldn't back against him being able to score in that game. Palmer in 2nd place. Villa away is a good fixture for him. I'll show you a little bit more about Palmer in a second, but quite a few people I've seen in my live chats, etc., considering selling Cole Palmer. I just wouldn't go anywhere near that. Son with Ipswich away, Dango, Odegaard, Trossard and Mbumo are your other top mids for 26. Over the next 5 game weeks, because of Salah's blank in 29, Palmer is actually the leading midfielder for expected points for the next 5 game weeks. And the next 3 fixtures he's got are really good. Villa, Southampton, Leicester in his next 3. I mean, sell Cole Palmer at your peril, in my opinion. Dango, interestingly, at just 5.1 million, is the 3rd best midfielder for expected points over the next 5. And you got Son, Foden, Semenyo, and Nkunku. But yeah, question his minutes potential, I'd say. But with Nicholas Jackson being out, he could be getting some decent minutes, I'd imagine. And to be honest, with how well Chelsea played with Palmer through the middle against Brighton, wouldn't surprise me. Cheap midfielders, I don't think there will be any real surprises on this list, to be honest. It's dominated by the 3 Bournemouth mids plus Nkunku, who, according to Fantasy Football Hub, at least is expected to get some minutes, which I guess with Jackson being out is plausible. The 3 Bournemouth midfielders, according to Fantasy Football Hub, are Dango, Semenyo and Kluivert in that order. Interesting just to see them have ordered it that way. I would still place Kluivert as my number 1, just given he is the penalty taker. And I'd probably, just because he's playing as a centre-forward now, I'd probably put Dango in 2nd and Semenyo in 3rd. To be interesting to see how they've actually calculated these. You've got Alanga there and Sharda of Brentford as well to note, and Brooks of Bournemouth, but I'd say his minutes are just not necessarily reliable enough to go for him. And ultimately, when you got 3 of Kluivert, Semenyo, Dango better than him, probably stay away from Brooks. Forwards then, and Isak tops the list with Nottingham Forest at home, followed by Haaland, who's got Liverpool, Watkins against Chelsea, Wissa against Leicester, who, just given the fixture that Brentford have got, I would personally rank Wissa a little bit higher than that. Raul Jimenez with Crystal Palace at home in 5th, losing my numbers there. Mateta in 6th and Cunha 7th. I would actually rank Cunha pretty high at the moment in terms of forwards I'd look at, because he's just so good. He can score against absolutely anyone. In terms of the order of forwards at the moment, we've got Haaland number 1 for the next 5 game weeks. Isak number 2. Obviously, Haaland is ahead of Isak because of that blank for Isak in game week 29. If he wasn't, well, there'd be 5 points between them. And I'd suggest, certainly over the next 3 game weeks, Isak's around there or thereabouts what Haaland's on. Cunha is the 3rd best forward. So like I said, probably the one to target at the moment, given his ownership is only 7.5%. Chris Wood in 4th, still right up there. You know, if you've got him, I definitely wouldn't sell him. Although I'd probably, if I was looking to buy a forward and didn't own either of them, I'd probably go for Cunha ahead of him, just with the lower ownership as well. Whistler's up there, Raul Jimenez and Mateta are your other top forwards. Couple of things then to finish the video off. We got clean sheet odds here. These are in no particular order. Arsenal on 53% to keep a clean sheet. We got Bournemouth up there on 37, Everton 31, Fulham 32, Newcastle 34, Brighton 30, Brentford on 29 and Spurs on 28. And usually when I see teams below 30% to keep a clean sheet, I say don't start defenders from them. So yeah, anyone outside of Arsenal, Bournemouth, well, defenders I start would be from Arsenal, Bournemouth, Everton, Fulham, Man United, Newcastle, Brighton, Brentford, and well, maybe Spurs this week. I don't fully trust the Spurs defence. But yeah, that's what things are looking like from a clean sheet odds perspective. And then for captaincy, I've got two sources of expected points data there. Top on Fantasy Football Hub at least is Salah. However, interestingly, I'm not sure I buy it at all. On FPL Review, it doesn't even have Salah in the top 6. The list is dominated by Arsenal players, who of course have got West Ham, which of the top teams in the league, they probably have the best fixture. Got Son up there, Isak, Palmer as well. I would still say, in my opinion, Salah's the best captain, even though he's about to play Man City. That doesn't detract anything from me. He's always had a good record against Man City. And, you know, they improved a lot in that Newcastle game. But to be fair, Newcastle were quite poor themselves. And, you know, based on their longest track record of poor defensive performances now in Man City, you've got to back Salah to score. So, yeah, I'd personally say Salah's the best captain. But that's what the expected points data shows. All right, then, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that, found it useful. If you did, please leave a like rating on the video. Let me know in the comments if there's any players ahead of Game Week 26 that have been missed in this video that you're looking to get. And that just leaves me to say, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Goal and Goal channel. Plenty more FPL content coming your way for the end of the season and indeed before the Game Week 26 deadline. So if you're watching this video and haven't subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit subscribe. Should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.